And so let's just get the basics of this case. The NRA has been accused. Well, the NRA has been accused of operating under an environment where its leadership could use charity funds or nonprofit funds on lavish personal expenses. Right. This situation has been, it stretches back decades. Really, is the accusation, and that
I think
that it's sort of ongoing issues as well. That's the core of this case, right? Those are the claims.
Yeah, we really ought to start though with the NRA. Was really a kind of one of these iconic nonprofits, like I don't know, the Girl Scouts or the Red Cross. It was nonpartisan, and the reason was that its main effort was educating young people how to use guns responsibly. And it was not a political organization. That really has been the gift of Mr. LaPierre in terms of changing it from an organization that really was in favor of guns, of course, but the proper use of them. And in fact, the NRA was not against the original ban on assault rifles. But then everything changed, and it really became a political organization linked very closely to extremely conservative Republicans, and also helping to redefine the Second Amendment.
Right. Well, certainly, Wayne LaPierre's legacy is heavily involved with the politics of the NRA, and there's obviously a whole, I think, podcast topic to do on the NRA and why it changed, especially at the period of time that it did, when there was, to be fair to the NRA, a much greater push for new gun restrictions than there had been previously to that point, especially on the federal level. So, but that's not really the politics is at play in this case, right? And we'll talk. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that, especially the NRA's defense involves politics to some degree, right? And we'll talk about that and why it hasn't worked to this point, or how they've tried to incorporate it in the case regardless. But first, the claims, at least in the case, don't stem from Wayne LaPierre's political beliefs or the way that he's used the NRA to influence, congressional races or presidential races or legislation that's going through. They stem from his use of NRA funds for things like private flights.
It was a personal piggy bank, basically.
Right.
He used it as a personal piggy bank.
That's the accusation, right? And so. And obviously the case has been, we've got through the AG's part of the case already. We're on to the defense section. Looks like there's about a week left after this point. Closing arguments are set to happen on the 15th of February. So we're pretty far along. I assume you've been following sort of the way it's gone so far. Can you just give us, to start here, your view of how the case is unfolding?
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a long time coming. Basically, the NRA has lost at every stage, save for it was able to prevent being dissolved, which it requests. That was one of James's requests, and the court said no. However, everything else has really gone the Attorney General's way, as it should. Because what LaPierre did, and also just the violations of standard New York not-for-profit requirements and practices. He basically was taking money out of the kitty without getting the appropriate approvals, and doing other things, attempting other things when James brought suit that were extraordinary. For instance, what the NRA has been trying to do was to move out of New York to go to Texas, where they think that it will be looked upon more favorably. One way they tried to do this was to declare bankruptcy.
Right.
LaPierre never told his general counsel that the organization was going to declare bankruptcy. LaPierre just went to court and tried to do it himself. And it was, I guess, a Texas court. And the court said, we're not going to allow this. So he's tried to do everything to avoid this. Also, the sorts of things he was engaged in are so outrageous that it's just hard to believe that he had the nerve to do it. It is estimated that he took personally millions of dollars that he essentially gave to his friends, to others on the board, things of that sort. Generally, when you are asked if you're ever asked to join the board of a nonprofit organization, you've got two questions you should raise. One, do you have directors and officers liability insurance? And the second question is, what is the give or get? In other words, most directors of a nonprofit organization are expected to make a charitable contribution or to raise the money. In the case of the NRA, it was one of the rare situations where the giving was by the organization to the other directors. They had a board of 76, and many of them also were on the gravy train in terms of getting contracts, in terms of getting other kinds of benefits. None of the benefits were as outrageous as LaPierre's. $250,000 for expenditures in a clothing boutique in Beverly Hills for himself. Free airfare for non-NRA events for his wife, relatives, not to speak of himself. So the sorts of things that were done were particularly outrageous, and there was no attempt really to sanitize them. In other words, you can have a conflict of interest, and there are procedures under New York law which the board takes to approve it, so long as there's full disclosure, things of that sort. None of that was there with the NRA.
So, all right. So these, as far as the most egregious accusations that you've seen in this case, they relate to the board being paid for various things, the sort of related party transactions where LaPierre was sort of giving gifts with NRA money or receiving gifts from top contractors that then
or contracts. And the other way it worked, LaPierre went on super luxury yachts with
the Mackenzies,
friends and family. Made all sorts of deals with people who were selling things, vendors to the NRA, and things like that. And other board members also received a lot from. Much was coming from the NRA's treasury. So there really was a lot of misdealing going on.